Hi, in this video, I want to give you feedback on the chapter discussion about the differences between the Israelites and the other empires, such as the Persians, Assyrians, and so on. I set this question to get you thinking in terms of compare and contrast, and also to get across the concept that not all important cultures were necessarily great empires. The Israelites made a very important cultural contribution, mainly through their religion, which ultimately gives us not just the Jewish faith, but also Christianity and Islam, which grow out of it. So the first question was about religious similarities or differences. There's a big clear difference here in that the Israelites were monotheistic, whereas the others were polytheistic, that is, they worshipped many gods. However, some qualifications have to be made here. The faith of the Persians, Zoroastrianism, was, to all intents and purposes, monotheistic. There's a little bit of debate about to what extent they were monotheistic. They had other gods, but their main god was so much greater than the others that he became, in effect, their single god. So people often characterize Zoroastrianism as being monotheistic, like the faith of the Israelites. The other qualification we have to make is that the Israelites were not always monotheistic. The Old Testament gives us the impression that monotheism wins because there's one true God, Yahweh, and all the other gods are shown to be inadequate. However, archaeology and reading between the lines in the Old Testament a little bit tell us that the Israelites once had more than one God. For example, Yahweh, the chief male god, was accompanied by Asherah, a female consort, and Asherah falls by the wayside as they shift from having polytheism to monotheism. The second question I asked you about was politics. In some ways, are similar in that the Israelites have kings, much as the Babylonians, Assyrians, Persians do. However, the Israelite society was not such a centralized kingship. Again, the Old Testament, although we can't treat it necessarily as literal history all the time, shows how the kingship was contested. Kings such as David and Solomon have to deal with various prophets and judges representing the religious authority who will challenge them and try and hold them to account. And the kingdom of Israel seems to emerge out of a tribal society, so it's fairly decentralized in comparison to the Persians or Babylonians, etc. There's a lot of controversy about the historical nature of the kingdom of Israel, although the later kingdoms of Israel and Judah, the two Jewish kingdoms or Israelite kingdoms, certainly are historical. Whether David and Solomon really existed as kings of a single kingdom of Israel, or whether they were later legendary figures or real figures whose lives were, shall we say, improved upon, exaggerated in legend, is a source of some debate to this day. Finally, when we look at culture, well, I've talked about how the Israelites were more of a tribal society, whereas the other kingdoms were more centralized. But a similarity was patriarchy was very strong in all these societies. The Old Testament very much emphasizes how patriarchal, male-centered Israelite society was. The various laws which were written down in the Old Testament show how the father is the head of the household. One of the commandments is honor your father and your mother, and also how women are excluded in various ways. Again, the laws show things like how women who are menstruating have to be excluded from society, how punishments for men and women based on adultery, a little like the Code of Hammurabi, are also different. So a similarity is both were patriarchal societies.